Nation. Harry here. I am this close to getting out my clippers and giving myself a haircut in this pandemic, so stand by for that. But a man who always is well groomed and has a better haircut than myself, Jim Roddy over at the RSPA. Welcome back, sir.
Harry, great to be here. I've had some people accuse me of having a bad toupee as they join me on video conference, so glad you like the wave that's been starting to form in my hair.
There we go. Hey, you have an interesting topic this month, the 7 habits of highly effective resellers or partners. Let's do a rhyme and verse. What's the story?
Sure. So we spent a lot of time at the RSPA talking with our solution provider members. And so these are folks who are in the greater retail, restaurant, hospitality, grocery, and convenience store vertical markets. And so we found some that were really struggling, and then other ones who were actually saying things are moving forward for me during this COVID-19 crisis. Obviously, nobody's saying like it's all perfect and wonderful, but we're saying, okay, what are the attributes that make somebody that they've been able to remain financially sound, if not actually be successful and start to move their business forward. So there's 7 attributes, like you said. I'll start with the first 3 because the first 3 kind of are financial based and the other ones branch off. And so the first one is having strong cash reserves, right? There's some business owners who say, you know, times are good now. I'm going to go spend this money instead of saving it for a rainy day fund. Smart business owners know there will always be a next recession. You don't know when it's going to be, but there will be a next recession. You know, at that point, cash is king. Second attribute is they have low or no debt, right? They are now trying to get some sort of grant or some outside assistance or government help in order to finance their business during the tough times, but they're constantly trying to say, I'm going to control that debt so I don't owe anything to the bank or little to the bank, or if the bank calls in my loan or some outside investor calls in my loan, I'll be able to pay that right back. So that's a second attribute, low or no debt. And then also, right when this pandemic hit, they reduced their expenses. And instead of saying, well, let me see how this plays out for a couple months and then go, oh my gosh, it's actually worse than I thought. Because once you get 2 months in, you've lost those 60 days, right? So if you have an expense and you cut it today, 3 months from now, you save triple what you would if you're going to save then. So it's really, it's a hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So I guess those are the first 3 that are financial. Again, strong cash reserves, low or no debt, and then they immediately reduced expenses no matter what their current income statement said.
Yeah. I've gone through a little bit of that exercise myself. For example, the other day I questioned, we have a couple different media properties, and I get this bill every month from a hoster, and it's $19.95. And I said, Self, what am I paying $19.95 for? And I logged on, and you would think it's not a good use of my time. It's sofa change. I logged on, and we're actually going to double click a little further into it tomorrow, but it's to host the DNS for one of our properties at $20 a month. And I'm saying, well, I have everything else over here. Why do I have this anomaly? Hey, $20 a month, man.
Yeah.
So,
my boss served as my mentor would say, you think, hey, saving $20, what's a big deal? He said, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you found $20, you put in your pocket, the rest of the day you tell everybody, woohoo, I found $20, like how lucky I am. But in the business world, sometimes you're like, that's $20 month after month after month. Yeah, you really got to make sure you're paying attention and in control of your expenses.
Please continue. Those were top 3 were great. Please continue.
Yeah, so those were, and so it's all about the math, and you have to start with the finances first. So the next 4 go in a few different directions. The first is that we saw these solution providers were vertically diversified. Now this is a tough one because you want to be a trusted solution provider in that niche, but if you're only focused on a very narrow niche, like if just say you were only in quick serve restaurants, well, that has been a difficult go for you, or especially if you were just only in sit-down restaurants, right? Like, what are you going to do from that standpoint? So the folks that we saw, again, in our world who were in not just restaurants, but also grocery, you got to see grocery numbers went up, restaurant went down, and so it allowed them to be mixed. Now, they made sure that they were still experts in those niche verticals, but they were diversified. The 5th attribute is they were already considered total solution providers and trusted advisors by their merchants, right? And you don't get to anoint yourself, I am a trusted advisor. It's up to your customers to say that. Now, these folks we talked to, a lot of people said, I did all sorts of customer outreach. We had folks who did customer outreach, but also said, my customers were calling me and saying, Harry, what do I do? Give me guidance on what I should do. And they would say online ordering, or here's this mobile thing that you can do for curbside pickup. Great, I'll do it. So that was a big thing to help them. Instead of some sort of a sales cycle or let me wait and see or search on my own, they trusted that solution provider, and the solution provider was able to offer a breadth of things, not just, ooh, I don't do that, somebody else does it. The sixth attribute is they frequently engage with their customers to meet urgent needs and strategize for the future, right? So folks were in all sorts of upheaval. They took care of that, but then they didn't just say, oh, you're good for the emergency? Okay, we're done here. They said, let's set up a strategy meeting to talk about what's going to happen once the sun rises after this COVID-19 crisis. How are you going to handle it from a staffing perspective, technology perspective, security perspective, and everything leading into it? Because we believe and we've seen there's going to be more technology inside of our customer base, especially in the retail and restaurant space, than there was before this pandemic. And then the last one is they're creatively adapting their product and service offering. Instead of just saying, here's what we do, they're saying this might be a time to put a twist on what we're doing or to bring on a new vendor and go from there. And we're actually in the middle of doing a survey right now of our membership, and we're at about 60% of them just during these 6 weeks of the COVID crisis. About 60% of them added a new product or came up with a new product of their own in order to serve their customers better. So again, those are the 7 attributes that we saw, and not that you can just snap your fingers and do all of them tomorrow, but if you build your business working towards these goals, when the next recession hits, because there will be a next recession, you'll be ready to not just survive, but potentially thrive during the crisis.
That's very interesting. On number 4 about vertical niches. Now, I've been a proponent forever and a day about vertical niches, and a lot of my early books are on small business server. So I get that. But when I was a consultant, a white collar consultant in the 1990s with a large regional accounting firm, back when accounting firms had consulting divisions before Anderson and Enron, we were told, do not spend more than 50% of your time in your niche, right? Because niches can be very dangerous when they dry up. And so I've taken that to heart. I probably haven't followed that advice as well as I should. But let me give you a better example. Reconnected on Facebook recently with a former employee. She's gone on to do other things, an entrepreneur at heart, God bless her, and gone on to do other things over the last 10 years. And as an entrepreneur, she's very streetwise and good at surviving. So long story short, she went back to food service in recent times as a waitress and bartender. And I get that, I get it. You do what you do, right? Bartender at night, entrepreneur by day. Well, that clearly ended a couple months ago. And she pivoted. This is an interesting story. She pivoted to the food store delivery services. Is it Postmates, or I kind of forget the name, but it's one of them. And super busy all day long, all day, every day, and getting tips. There's generosity when you bring the groceries to someone's house. So Jim, that's an example of the restaurant shut down, but the food stores are thriving.
Correct. Exactly right. Yeah, the grocery people, a part of the survey that we're doing right now, we've actually had solution providers who had to add staff because the grocers were just so overwhelmed in, every different degree. And they also needed immediate service. It wasn't like they could close a couple lanes, right? They had to have everything open and up and running. But that to me is a real thing of there's a specialty that you have to have, but there's also a flexibility that you need as well. You can't just say, I'm going to do the same thing I did last year, this year, and sell it the same way to the same people. And I think COVID might have accelerated, this entire COVID crisis might have accelerated that kind of thinking, or might have accelerated the demise of some folks who weren't ready for this pandemic and ready for a crisis, quite frankly.
Well, and I'll end on this, especially in our world. Now, my sister is married to a medical doctor who has a specialty, if you will, emergency room. I'll call it a specialty. I mean, he's not a cardiologist or oncologist, but that's what he does. So there are exceptions depending on the profession, right? Like you're Mr. Cardiologist. Okay, I got it. And I want you to be Mr. Cardiologist. But different animal. And well, Jim, you've added extreme value with this month's check-in. So, sir, by the time we talk to you again, we will have enjoyed, let's call it a modified Memorial Day. And we'll check in with you before the summer solstice and the days start getting shorter. Oh my goodness, it's already that. Where'd these months go?
Yeah. No, looking forward to it. Always a pleasure to talk with you, Harry, and great to engage with your community.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Jenny, over in the radio control room. Have a nice day, folks.